What if I told you that doubling your practice revenue is actually harder than growing it 10x? So I know that sounds crazy, but it actually is the premise of a really good book that I recommend. It's called 10x is Easier Than 2x by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. And they actually have a couple different series of books. Who Not How is another really good one in terms of identifying the people so that you can actually be given the time to do the revenue generating things in your business. So today we're going to break down how that is counterintuitive, but it applies directly to any medical practice. And we'll talk about some tips that we've seen other practices use and help you guys, again, grow your practice here in 2026. All right, so most practices grow by 2x, right? They think, how can I double our revenue this year? And the answer is usually, of course, work harder, right? See more patients, add more physicians, open another location, add more service lines. But that sometimes can be complex. It can lead to burnout, diminished returns. And so today we're going to talk about really identifying what is driving revenue in your practice and how to do more of what you're already doing that, again, is driving that gross revenue, that is driving that profit margin, and less about just focusing on, okay, I just want to double my revenue, which just means more patients. And 10x is when you think, okay, I want to grow my business by 10x this year. It is so big, so impossible that you feel like you just can't achieve it by working harder. So it forces you to step back and actually ask different questions, right? It's not, okay, how do I, double my patient volume? It's who do I need to become or who do I need to hire to achieve this? And it forces you to eliminate basically everything else that isn't essential. And so today we're going to be talking about that 10x mindset when it comes to your practice, and highly recommend this book. It's an easy read or easy listen. The core concept of the book is basically that it's easier or just as easy to achieve 10x growth than it is to go 2x because you're doing the same activities, right? But what it focuses on is that you actually have to eliminate 80% of your current activities, clients, payers, and mindsets that are holding you back so that you can actually just focus on that 20% that actually drives the exponential results, i.e. revenue and profit in your business. So if you're wondering what that 80% may be in your practice, a good place to start is we created this margin playbook. It's free download with some description on key things you can look for this year in terms of increasing patient AR, or increasing patient collections. And so you can check those out at natrevmd.com/margin-playbook. And the link will be in the show notes. All right, so let's talk about an example of what this looked like in a real OBGYN practice that we are connected with and that is a client of ours. So they were working, again, initially with that mindset of 2x, I need to see more patients, squeeze in more annual exams, and they were taking on some low reimbursement insurance plans, and everybody was just exhausted, right? Because it's just volume, volume, volume. So they asked for something differently amongst their practice. What is our highest and best use of our time? So they went and looked at 20% of their patient gross revenue, right, was coming from their deliveries, their surgical cases, and that's what they actually really enjoyed. And so they increased that portion of their business. They eliminated the 80% of the crap that wasn't getting them a lot of gross revenue. So they stopped accepting a very low paying insurance plan. They delegated all routine annual exams and birth control consults to their mid-levels. So it freed up the physicians to actually do the things that they enjoyed, which again were those high risk, more complex pregnancies and deliveries. And so they were able to shift their volume instead of it always being about just increasing volume. Where can they increase volume in order to increase their gross revenue? Or where can they keep volume the same but increase gross revenue by focusing on that 20% of activities that is giving you 80% of your revenue? Again, that's Pareto's principle. And so when you look at your day, when you look at who you see every day, right, which payers are the lowest paying specialties? Can you negotiate them, or can you drop them and bring in more volume if you already have a wait list for those other high paying commercial payers. And so that's one way to look at this. Or is there a way to shift your volume to where the mid-levels are doing more of the routine stuff and you do more of the complex stuff so you can bring in more of that volume? Really want to take a look at your payer mix for sure. I know that sometimes that's hard to do because you want to serve the community, but at the end of the day, you've got to make sure that you're not burning yourself out and you're able to cover your bills. So we've worked with urgent cares. And, obviously you can always compete on volume, right? Bring in more volume. That is always the fastest and the cheapest way, but it's also the race to the bottom. And so one of our urgent cares that we've worked with, who's a client of ours, they were really in the mindset of 10X. And so they realized that if they really focused on negotiating their payer rates, they had some capitated rates that they could go after in terms of increasing those, contacting the payers, sitting down with them, creating some win-win situations to increase those capitated rates, and then also auditing that capitated rate to make sure that they're not missing, a $30,000 check because they're only processing half of their claims. So really important to take a look at these things that don't involve this massive increase in volume, but do increase your revenue significantly. They also recognize that simple cold and flu visits is fine, but higher acuity cases, laceration pairs, fractures, x-rays are always going to be more profitable. And so how can they work with local employers to be that urgent care of choice? So again, the focus here is eliminating the 80% that doesn't contribute to the majority of your revenue, right? So 20% of your activities is contributing to 80% of your revenue. And so that's the key, is really understanding what is that 20% that's driving your revenue, what payers, what patient types. Those are the things that's going to allow you to not just focus on increasing volume, but increasing the ability to have revenue generated in your office. All right, so really quick plug for front desk eligibility. Huge part of inefficient work, right? You can see a patient, but if you don't have a solid eligibility process, you could be seeing that patient for free. So really want to make sure that you guys have a great eligibility process in your front desk. And so you can download that at notrevmd.com/eligibility-billing-verification. Again, link in the show notes. So next, let's kind of talk about 3 steps that you can take this week to really identify areas of opportunity. So we're going to focus on identifying that 20% of activities, again, that is driving 80% of your revenue. So that's really looking at your gross revenue, looking at that 80%, and then understanding what are the top 3 payers, procedures, patient types that generate the majority of your revenue, and also, profit margin as well. And so get really brutally honest about this. And so again, if you have a couple really low paying payers, what happens if you were to drop those? Now you do have to kind of manage, okay, if I drop those and they're a big payer, big percentage of my volume, what is that going to do to gross revenue? And can I increase volume of the right types of payers in my practice? So really key, again, we're focusing on identifying your 20%, right? What are those top activities driving gross revenue? Then look at the 80%. And again, this is 80% of activities, right? Things that you're doing in the practice. It's not 80% of revenue, right? So there's then that 80% of stuff you do every day is only driving 20% of your revenue. So what are the low margin services, payers, time consuming tasks that you do, problem payers, and make a list, and then that's the things that you stop doing. Now, last, this is important, and I brought this up, there's the Who Not How book, and again, another Dan Sullivan. So for the things that are 80% on your list, right, the things that aren't driving the majority of your revenue. So the question is going to become either how can we do this better, right? Who can you negotiate with in order to bring those prices up? Who can take on those routine visits that's not as expensive as a physician? Are there automation things you can do? Is it paperwork? Is it phone calls? Is it patient portal messages? Or all of those things getting done for free? Can you add a price and charge your patients that? So who can manage these low margin services? How can you negotiate? Where can you delegate? Or do you just need to cut the activity altogether? Again, really focusing on trying to keep your gross revenue the same, but identifying the activities that are the 80% junk that's not really driving a large portion of your revenue. And this is painful and hard because there may be a slight dip in gross revenue to start. It shouldn't be more than 20% because, again, that's what we're focused on. But then how do you improve the activities on that 20%? So again, your revenue stays the same or grows. That's the key here. So again, this is really just about a mindset shift, right? So 2x growth is always, you're thinking, how do I do more volume? How do I open up another location? And can be one component, but I want to challenge yourself to go, okay, I did X revenue last year, and this year I want to 10X, right? So you're not going to do that by just pure volume, right? Because it just won't be possible. So then it makes your mind start to think through what are the things that can increase my revenue 10x, and just put a challenge out there. 1 year, 10x growth, add a zero. It's going to allow you to start identifying your unique 20% activities that are driving 80% of your revenue, and either eliminate or delegate the rest of that 80% to someone else or get it off your books. So action plan here is first, identify that 20%, right? Find your highest and best use of your time that's leading to gross revenue in your business. Then identify the 80%. What are the things that you can either stop doing or for the third step, delegate those to someone else or automate. All right, so definitely something to go check out. Check out Who Not How and 10x is greater than 2x. Some favorite books, easy to read. And I think for whether you're leading a department or leading a large, medium-sized practice, this is the key to helping kind of change how you think about your business. All right, hope you have a great rest of the week. And if you are a practice doing over $150,000 a month and you're ready to explore a new medical billing partner, head on over to notrevmd.com. We are more than just a revenue cycle. We are a strategic partner. And if you click on the top right-hand corner, you can check and see if you can do a free metric audit. All right, talk to you soon.